This is not a joke. This is not clickbait. And if you came here thinking this was some kind of sick gimmick or storyline, you need to understand right now that what happened on Monday Night Raw tonight was real. A WWE superstar suffered a legitimate medical emergency in the ring, and while the wrestling world is reeling from the shock, there are people, actual people, on social media right now saying WWE staged this for ratings. Are you kidding me? Have we lost our minds as a fan base? Have we become so desensitized to real human suffering that we can't tell the difference between a work and a shoot anymore? And here's what makes me absolutely furious. While a man's life hung in the balance, while medical professionals were frantically working to save him in front of a horrified live audience, WWE executives were apparently in the back scrambling to figure out how this affects their precious WrestleMania 42 plans with Roman Reigns and CM Punk. The show must go on, right? Ratings matter more than human lives, right? Wrong. And we're about to have a very real, very uncomfortable conversation about what happened tonight, what it means for the industry, and why some of you need to take a long, hard look in the mirror. Before we go any further, I need to know, did you watch Raw live tonight, or are you just finding out about this now? Drop it in the comments because the people who saw this unfold in real time understand the gravity of what we witnessed. This wasn't entertainment. This was a genuine medical crisis. Let me set the scene for those who didn't watch. Monday Night Raw was coming from the TD Garden in Boston. The show was cooking along, building toward WrestleMania 42, which is now just weeks away. The main storyline everyone's been talking about is the long-awaited collision between Roman Reigns and CM Punk, two of the biggest egos, two of the biggest stars, two men who legitimately cannot stand each other in real life, finally going one-on-one on the grandest stage of them all. Tonight's show was supposed to feature a major segment advancing that feud. Roman was scheduled to appear via satellite because he's been doing this part-time schedule thing, and CM Punk was set to be in the ring cutting a promo. But before we even got to that segment, there was a match involving a veteran star, and I'm not going to say his name yet because his family deserves privacy and WWE hasn't released an official statement with all the details, but trust me, you know exactly who I'm talking about. This wrestler, a man who's been in the business for over 2 decades, was in the middle of what seemed like a routine match. Nothing crazy, nothing ultra-physical by WWE standards. But about 8 minutes into the match, something went horribly wrong. Those of us watching live saw him clutch his chest. We saw his face turn pale. We saw him drop to one knee, and his opponent immediately signaled to the referee that something was seriously wrong. Here's a question for the long-time fans. Have you ever witnessed a legitimate in-ring medical emergency live? Not a worked injury, not a storyline, but a real crisis? Tell me in the comments how it made you feel, because what happened next was something I'll never forget. The referee immediately threw up the X symbol, the universal sign in wrestling that this is a real injury, not part of the show. The match stopped instantly. His opponent, to his credit, didn't break character for the cameras, but you could see the genuine fear in his eyes. WWE's medical team rushed the ring within seconds. The broadcast went to a commercial break so fast that you knew this was legitimate. They didn't try to work it into an angle. They didn't have commentary speculate about what was happening. They just cut away because they knew this was serious. When Raw came back from commercial, Michael Cole's voice was different. Gone was the hype, gone was the excitement. He sounded like a man delivering actual news, which is exactly what he was doing. He informed the audience that a superstar had suffered a medical emergency, that he was receiving treatment, and that they would update us as soon as they had more information. The live crowd in Boston was completely silent. You could hear a pin drop in that arena. Social media immediately exploded. And this is where my blood starts to boil, because instead of showing concern, instead of sending prayers and positive thoughts, the first thing thousands of people did was accuse WWE of faking it. It's a work, they said. They are just trying to get people talking before WrestleMania, they claimed. This is in poor taste, but it's obviously fake, they argued. No, it wasn't. Multiple credible sources, including people who were actually in the building tonight, confirmed that paramedics were called, that an ambulance was on standby, and that this superstar was taken to a local Boston hospital for emergency treatment. His family was notified. Other wrestlers were visibly shaken backstage. This was as real as it gets, and the fact that anyone could think otherwise shows just how cynical and disconnected some wrestling fans have become. Now, let's talk about the Roman Reigns and CM Punk situation, because believe it or not, WWE actually continued with the show. After about 20 minutes of uncertainty, after they'd gotten the wrestler stabilized and transported to the hospital, they made the decision to continue Monday Night Raw. And this is where it gets complicated, where it gets messy, where we have to ask ourselves some really difficult questions about the wrestling business. The Roman Reigns satellite segment happened. Centimeter Punk came out and cut his promo. They built toward WrestleMania 42 like nothing had happened. Now, some people are saying this was disrespectful, that WWE should have cancelled the rest of the show out of respect for their injured performer. Others are saying that's exactly what the wrestler would have wanted, for the show to go on, for the business to continue, because that's what wrestlers do. Quick question for you, do you think WWE should have ended Raw early tonight, or was continuing the show the right call? This is a tough one, and I genuinely want to hear your perspectives in the comments. Here's what we know about the Roman vs. Punk situation and how tonight's incident might affect it. WrestleMania 42 is set for SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles on the 19th of April and 20th. Roman Reigns vs. Centimeter Punk is currently scheduled for Night 2 as one of the main events. Both men have been on a collision course for months, with the story being that Punk returned to WWE specifically to face Roman, to prove that he's the real best in the world, to show that Roman's reign of dominance means nothing against someone of Punk's caliber. The build has been intense. These two have a legitimate history of not getting along. Centimeter Punk has never hidden his disdain for part-timers who show up, take spots from full-time talent, and leave. Roman Reigns represents everything Punk has criticized about modern WWE, a corporate champion who works a reduced schedule while everyone else carries the load. But here's where tonight's medical emergency throws everything into chaos. According to sources backstage, and take this with a grain of salt because nothing is confirmed, WWE executives were in emergency meetings during the show trying to figure out if they needed to pivot their WrestleMania plans. Not because of Roman or Punk directly, but because of the optics, because of the public perception. Because having a wrestler suffer a heart attack on live television just weeks before your biggest show of the year is a PR nightmare. There are whispers, and again, these are just whispers right now, that Vince McMahon's daughter and current WWE leadership are considering making changes to the WrestleMania card to show that WWE takes talent health seriously. Some are suggesting they might add stipulations to matches to make them safer. Others think they might pull certain high-risk performers from the card entirely. And here's the thing that makes me absolutely sick: while a man is fighting for his life in a hospital, while his family is praying for him to pull through, there are people in WWE headquarters worried about how this affects their bottom line. I'm not saying they don't care about the wrestler, I'm sure they do, but the fact that business decisions are being made in real time while this crisis is ongoing tells you everything you need to know about the wrestling industry. Let me ask you something, and be brutally honest, do you think WWE genuinely cares about wrestler health and safety, or do they just care about avoiding lawsuits and bad publicity? Drop your real opinion below. The Roman and Punk match is still scheduled for WrestleMania 42 as of right now. Neither man has commented publicly on tonight's incident, which is probably the smart move. What are they going to say? Sorry about your colleague nearly dying, but we're still going to beat each other up in a month. The whole situation is just gross. But let's be clear about something: this is not Roman's fault. This is not Punk's fault. This is not even necessarily WWE's fault. Sometimes medical emergencies happen. Sometimes people have underlying conditions that nobody knew about. Sometimes tragedy strikes without warning. What is WWE's fault is the culture that pushes wrestlers to work hurt, to hide injuries, to ignore warning signs because they are afraid of losing their spot on the card. How many wrestlers have we lost over the years because they were too proud or too scared to say, "I need help"? How many have suffered in silence because admitting weakness in this industry is seen as career suicide? Eddie Guerrero, Owen Hart, Brian Pillman. The list goes on, and every single time, WWE promises to do better. Every single time, they say they're implementing new protocols and health screenings. And yet, here we are again. Final question before we wrap up: what is one thing WWE could do right now to prove they actually care about wrestler safety and not just damage control? Give me your best idea in the comments. As of right now, we're still waiting for an official medical update on the wrestler who suffered the heart attack tonight. His condition hasn't been publicly disclosed, and his family has asked for privacy during this incredibly difficult time. All we can do is hope, pray, and send positive energy his way. Roman Reigns vs Centimeter Punk at WrestleMania 42 is still happening. The show will go on, because in WWE, the show always goes on. But maybe, just maybe, tonight will be a wake-up call. Maybe this will be the incident that finally forces WWE to put performer health above profits. Maybe this will be the tragedy that prevents future tragedies. But I'm not holding my breath. And neither should you. This is Wrestling Zone 1. Stay safe out there.